Before we dive into our main story, let's take a moment for a brief recap of Seasons 1 and 2. However, if you've already read it, feel free to skip ahead to the 39th minute of the video. Irene Pereira was a son of a noble. Irene was very famous in their estate and was nicknamed the Deadbeat Noble. He lost his mother at a young age and didn't do anything until the age of 15. He stayed in his room every day, doing nothing but sleeping, and so the nickname came along. But one day, he cannot sleep for a certain reason, because of a strange dream. His body is itching and holding a sword. His dream was about a stranger who came to a village. The man has a fierce and dangerous eye like someone who has experienced horrible things. Some people who peeked at the fence said that this guy was just swinging his sword every day without rest. For 5 years, he just swings his sword again, and even a beard grows all over his face. On the 6th year, 9th month, and 3rd day, there was a lot of snow, but that man trained nevertheless. Even on the strong rainy days, he just swings his great sword again and again. After 37 years had passed, he was on his knees, but his eyes are still raging. He hadn't let go of his sword till the end of his last breath. Like the man in his dreams, Irene also picks up the large great sword and continuously slashes it again and again without rest. Even his body screams in pain. There was a wandering knight who just watched Irene train for several days just to fulfill his curiosity, thinking that Irene would just stop training and give up at the end. He sees potential in Irene and asks who will going to be his swordsmanship instructor of Irene. When he realized it was a drunkard knight, he got angry because he didn't want to waste Irene, who he considered as a gem. He goes to the Lord, which is the father of Irene, and tells him about the potential of Irene. He talks about the recommendation letter to the Chrono Swordsmanship School. It is the continent's best swordsmanship school that only teaches talented children, regardless of nationality, gender, or status. Just by being a trainee, you could be treated like a nobleman, a place with a greater reputation than the Royal Academy. Irene accepted the offer and got the recommendation letter to enroll in the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy. As someone who was known as the Deadbeat Noble, everyone glares at him in his entry at the academy. Even the instructors were questioning why would a picky knight like Bran Somerville recommend someone like Irene. During the training as someone who has a weak body from just sleeping for years, Irene was always in the last and he received mockery from his fellow academy students. But he was determined, so he stood up and ran again. He wanted to be like the man in his dreams. He wants to be on par with him. Together with Irene in the academy is Ilya Lindsay, who was considered a genius in their family, and Brett, who came from a famous noble family but has an inferiority complex. And also Judith, who was a commoner but was a strong individual that even defeated Brett for the 2nd place in one of the tests. At some point, Ilya, who doesn't talk to anyone, was able to help Irene in some of his training, offering him tips on how to do weightlifting. The Chrono Swordsmanship Master is Ian, who is a 90-year-old swordmaster who took a liking at Irene. Master Ian even offered Irene a swordsmanship training. But he also felt that Irene has something like a guardian in his back who assists him during training. Even though Irene starts from the bottom, he is able to reach the final evaluation stage in their swordsmanship skills. In the final evaluation, Brett and Judith spar with one another to showcase their talents. It starts with an equal match exchanging swords with one another. During the continuous exchange, one winner emerges in the end, and that is Brett, because Judith's sword was destroyed during their sparring match. Ilya Lindsay shows also the swordsmanship of their family, the sky sword that slew the demonic dragon king. In every slash of Ilya, it creates large wind in the whole area. Everyone was in awe to see the sky sword personally. Because of what they saw, Brett felt the greatest inferiority to Ilya, and he felt like he was only dreaming of thinking that he can defeat Ilya in the first place. That is why he also wishes that Irene, out of all people, to not be special like Ilya. When Irene's turn and asks what is he going to show to the people, he just says that he is going to show one vertical slash. Everyone was disappointed to know that he would only show one vertical slash in the final assessment. Only Master Ian looks forward to it. In Master Ian's mind, now, show me. You, who didn't desire my teachings. You, who was indifferent to my swordsmanship. Show me your sword, Irene. Irene stands still for a minute without doing anything. He is just meditating, thinking of the man who endlessly swings his sword. The man who keeps moving forward with a will that is hard as steel. With just one vertical slash from Irene, it created a massive crack in the whole area that made everyone who was watching shock. When Master Ian announces the result, Judith was in the 4th place and Brett Lloyd was on the 3rd place. Irene Pereira was on the 2nd place, and on the 1st place is Ilya Lindsay. After that, Ilya told Irene that she will going to leave the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy to go back to their estate. She told him about his brother Carl Lindsay, who was considered as the greatest genius in the continent with his superior talent, which reached a height impossible for his age. But there was a commoner who took 1st place in the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy, but refused to become an official trainee. The continent's 2nd genius who organized a mercenary band at the young age of 14. A person named Ignet appeared requesting to spar with Ilya's older brother. Carl accepted the challenge, and as a result, after 3 strikes, it ended with Ignet's victory, and Ignet called Carl as a disappointment. From that point on, he was met with cold eyes and fell into unbearable despair after receiving the pressure of indiscreet condemnation and ridicule. Because of that, she pledged that she will not be controlled by anyone, but before she knew it, she was already being controlled and wanted to overcome Ignet. But because of Irene, she wants to change, and from that moment she wants to follow his heart. That is why she wants to thank Irene for it. After that, Irene was given a chance by Master Ian to find his sword for a year, and Ilya gave Irene their family insignia so when he visits the Lindsay family estate, he won't be treated poorly. Brett Lloyd was somewhat able to overcome his inferiority complex, and only he and Judith stayed at the Swordsmanship Academy. While Irene is on his way home, they meet the Gyron family son, which is the most hostile family towards the Pereira, the family that plainly ignored and humiliated Irene on many occasions. When the young master of the Gyron family, Aaron Gyron, asks Irene to shake hands with an intention of crushing the hands of Irene with his grip strength, Irene just looks at him without any movement at all, even though he was putting all of his strength. Irene was confused about why he was gripping tightly, so he gripped the hand of Aaron, but it ended up with Aaron suffering from pain. That is when a talking cat suddenly appeared and she said, "What? It is already over? What are you doing? Give him a good smack." Because the knight of the Gyron family, Sir Jack Stewart, heard that there is nothing good comes out of associating with a mystic, he bows down to the mystic cat and says, "I apologize if we acted rudely towards you, Mystic. We will now take our leave. If you were offended, then please visit Viscount Gyron's territory." Although the mystic cat was disappointed that there is no fight that happened, the Gyron family continues their way. When he reached his home, his father told him that the mystic cat named is Ruru, who is a real cat. She even has an intelligence of a human, and that cat is super strong, that is probably stronger than any of the mystics in the kingdom's capital, and Ruru also visited their estate requesting to be Kirill's teacher, Irene's sister, who is also a mystic. The guards even warned Irene about Ruru. He said, "I have heard rumors that the cat mystic gathers misfortune around her. It is almost as if she is cursed." Although Irene noticed that soldiers avoid Ruru for that reason, he still plays with her since he likes this cat. When Irene tries to grab a sword to his own way of sword as what Master Ian assigned him, Ruru was amazed to see the heaviness of emotion in that slash of sword. Ruru showed him her mystic powers and she said, "Irene, have you ever learned the mystic arts? Irene, please become my student." However, Irene said no, because being a mystic is not something that can be learned by someone even if they want to. Ruru said, "You don't know a thing. There is no one more suited for mystic arts than a swordsman with a strong will. From what I can see, there is a high possibility that you will awaken an ability that will support your swordsmanship. Do you know the difference between swordsmen, magicians, and mystics? I will only tell you just this once, so listen carefully. All martial artists, including swordsmen, focus on their bodies, or in other words on their interiors. After endless strengthening and training, they obtain boundless mysterious power, which is aura. On the other hand, magicians focus on their surroundings, or in other words, the exterior. They analyze mana, the mysterious power found in nature, and try to understand the principles, laws, and logics of the world. Then, what about a mystic? Many people say that they are an existence that makes stubborn demands to the world. They are an existence that asks for the impossible to happen. They are an unprecedented existence that ignores the laws and common sense of the world and make their will that they sincerely hope for into reality. That is a mystic. But you must understand one thing. Mystics need a will strong enough for it to be possible to change the entire world by themselves. They need an extraordinary and unrivaled heart that can't even be imagined by normal existences. Therefore, a mystic power is proportional to the power of their heart. Ruru felt an unbreakable will from his vertical slash that had strong desire to cut something. After that, Irene was assigned to one expedition. His butler warns him about the rumor about Ruru. There is a rumor that she was in a mystic guild called Oracle in the eastern part of the continent, and that the guild was completely destroyed after she left. He also heard that after the second son of Jackal Thief became her disciple, he lost his life in an unfortunate accident. And even the previously wealthy Balvenie merchant group had a downward trend in sales after meeting a black cat. During the banquet of the other nobles, Irene was being looked down by other nobles just because he was holding the glass of wine in a wrong way. Because of this, Irene excused himself away from the banquet and ran away to the training grounds, blaming himself and thinking that he is a bad son for making the life of his family harder for being once a lazy son. And in the training grounds, that son from the Ruzel family even looked down at Irene, saying that he does not only know how to hold a wine glass, but he also doesn't know how to hold the sword. That is why Irene told them to come and go at him for a spar. The first one who spars with Irene was defeated easily, and he doesn't want to accept the result, saying that Irene only won because of a surprise attack. The next person who spars on Irene ends up begging someone to stop the fight because he can't say anything as his hands are shivering from all of the heavy attacks he received from Irene. And the last one is from Gyron's family, who wasn't able to release one slash because his sword broke down before he could release one attack. He could only dodge away from Irene from just feeling his pressure. He could only ask questions about how his sword broke down because they didn't even clash swords to begin with. Ruru somewhat became Irene's teacher, saying that he needs to swing his sword with sincerity 1,000 times a day, pouring his heart into the sword with a thought on how he can move forward and make it stronger in each and passing day. But after days of training, suddenly Irene awakened his mystic arts. Ruru said that Irene enters to a space that no one can enter or interfere with. It is a space only for himself that is the most ideal for fulfilling his wish. Irene will continue training there until he obtains the result he was satisfied with. Ruru blames herself, thinking if she cursed someone again. In that space, he saw the man in his dreams looking at him. Suddenly, Irene was pulled to the man, who is standing still with brilliant light surrounds him. He was transported to a place where that man trains for years, and there is nothing in there but just a large sword of the man. For Irene, it was a great training space, and in that place he can find someday the way of his sword. That place can provide him with shelter, clothes, and unlimited food, for Irene mystic arts was amazing. In that space he was able to train with Ilya, Brett, and Judith. He was also able to copy and train their sword style. And after 5 years of training with swords, he was able to come out, and he said sorry to his parents for making them worry. After that, to enter the subjugation, his sister Kirill told Irene that he needed to spar on her to prove that he is ready for the subjugation. Because of mystic powers, now Irene was able to summon sword automatically using mystic arts. Irene was able to show the fruit of his training in 5 years because of that spar. And with that, Kirill approved his brother, and he said that he is sorry for taking so long in that mystical space. Kirill told Irene about the particulars of the mission. She said, a Demonoid has appeared. About a month ago, its traces were discovered south of the Gyron territory. The existences who attained immense power through a contract with a demon. You could say that Demonoids are comparable to mystics, a corrupted and mystic power originating from a negative heart. Their danger can't be even compared to regular monsters. The mystic of Caesar Skin, a kitten who is also the master of Kirill, is actually a 50+ years old woman who looks younger due to mystic arts. He gives Irene an artifact that detects a certain level of demonic energy and dangerous elements. It can even detoxify most poisons. Although everything seems to be okay now, Irene is still longing to his friend, which is Ruru, who went missing after the incident. During that time, the one who is in charge is the vice captain of the Twilight Knight Order, Sir Hill Burnett, for the subjugation of the Demonoid, who gives a short prank to all those nobles who just wants honor in participating in subjugation. They let them feel the intense pressure from him to scare them off. And while they are traveling, a sudden giant appeared, and all of them were shocked by the sudden appearance. Sir Hill Burnett was thinking that he could only be the one who could defeat the giant, and he had no choice but to leave the other creatures to the Twilight Knight Order. But before the subjugation commander could take an action to attack the giant, Irene Pereira was already there jumping and slicing down the giant easily. But that giant didn't die that easily, as he was able to regenerate once again and releases a counterattack towards Irene, trying to smash him down. But with just one vertical slash of Irene, the whole area disintegrated, including the giant. At that moment, the subjugation commander realized the monster of Hail Kingdom Irene, who is on par of Ilya, appeared in front of them. They entered the place where the suspected Demonoid is staying, and the Demonoid they encounter has the ability to hypnotize the subject just by looking at her eyes. For the subjugation commander, this Demonoid is much stronger than he expected. Sir Hill Burnett used his roar to wake up the soldiers and go back to themselves. The Demonoid captures both the knight and the son of the Gyron's family, and she says that she will let them go if they will let her escape. That is when the confrontation between the two parties starts. The Gyron family, who wants to stop them from attacking just to protect his son, and the subjugation commander, who wants to finish his duty. Sir Hill Burnett said, "Twilight Knight order with my authority as the subjugation commander. I order you. Give no heed to anyone who gets in the way of the Demonoid subjugation, regardless of their status." The Demonoid was happy that the subjugation team was in chaos, but what caught her attention is Irene, who was holding his sword and was closing his eyes even in the dire situation. And she was shocked to see a sudden wind slash approaching her, and that came from Irene, who was able to attack and damage the Demonoid. When she tried to escape, Irene was there waiting for her, and Irene released one vertical slash that reached the Demonoid, and he was cut in half. She turned into stone and later crumbled into pieces. After that, Ruru appeared in their estate while she still blames herself for making Irene separated from his family for 5 years, and she don't want to be with Irene since he brings misfortune. Irene said, "A black cat will become a symbol of good fortune starting today, and we will be together from now on. My belief will be stronger than the beliefs of everyone else. I believe that you are a cat that brings good fortune." Ruru could only cry and said that she missed Irene. After that, Ruru said something, "The man in your dreams. He seems to have a strong hatred towards Demonoid. No, maybe their roots. It may be hatred towards demons. If he is someone from around 150 years ago, that is." While on his way to go back to the academy, he was able to spar with one of his batchmates in the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy. He spars with Lance and Irene, one using both the swordsmanship of Brett and Judith. He was also able to spar with the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy headmaster Ian, who he shows his vertical slash to him. While traveling, they also gain a new companion. He is Kruver, who is an Urk and also a shaman that acts as their guide. They were also able to meet Anya, a young girl who is also a mystic. In the Darinku drill hall, some famous swordsmen gather to get the prize, which is a numbering sword made by famous dwarf blacksmiths such as Vulcanus, Pablo, and Dwanson. But the dwarves' blacksmith doesn't want to pick the winner, but solely on someone who can give them inspiration for the creation of the new sword. When Irene tries to summon his great sword, all of the dwarfs was taken aback. They stopped the match and declared that the owner of the 10th numbering sword will be Irene Pereira. But after a month, Irene leaves the area for another journey and leaves his sword in their care, since the dwarf said they needed to finish it within the year. But on their way, they meet these two guys, Victor and Charlotte, who was also a participant in that time. They are waiting to ambush Irene to take the numbering sword, saying they need it since they were not able to pass the wall no matter what they do. While this too was enraged, saying that Irene would never understand them. Irene felt a demonic energy among these humans, so he prepared to defend himself. But Anya was actually tracking these two people, and she suddenly summoned a portal. In that portal, there is a person who came out. It was the Holy Kingdom's Black Knight Order Captain Ignet Crescentia. Those two people didn't even stand a chance against a strong opponent like Ignet. Ignet was a swordmaster, but even with that feat, she was able to kill two experts barehanded. She has a merciless strength. Ignet told Irene that she wants him to be part of the Black Knight Order, but Irene refused, and they end up sparring with one another. Irene receives a punch from Ignet that makes him thrown away and lose consciousness. When Irene woke up, he asked Ignet what is her sword. Ignet said that her sword is one to become a king. Kruver said that statement is like instigating a rebellion, but Ignet explained her stand. Before she jumps down, she said, "Irene Pereira, who do you trust?" "I trust in myself. I have conviction in myself. Because of that, I can walk my own path without a single shred of doubt. I will make you the same offer if we ever meet again. Not to the steel within your heart, but to Irene Pereira himself. In the tavern, they were able to meet Brett, and Judith and Irene introduced Kruver and Ruru to them. After that, they were referred to go to the Coliseum Land of Proof, the pride of Calyard Kingdom, one of the 5 Western kingdoms. It was already an exceptional coliseum, but its level increases exponentially with the appearance of one swordsman recently, one of the Chrono's 27th generation, Ilya Lindsay, the current champion of the Land of Proof. After watching Ilya's fight on the Coliseum, Irene was not happy about the result because he definitely felt something strange from Ilya. He can feel the dark energy similar to magic. That is why he decided that he wants to see Ilya for now. When Irene met Ilya, he felt that the dark energy surrounding him is getting thicker. So he told Ilya that he is precious to him, and she has once said to him after the assessment that she wouldn't be controlled by anyone else anymore. He said that it is not too late to stop. But Ilya's atmosphere suddenly changed. She said, "You are right. I still haven't been able to escape from the gazes of others. All because of those sons of beaches who deserve more than being ripped to shreds. I did my best again and again so that they could no longer slander my brother and my family, and the result is this aura that tells me that I walked in the correct path." Because of that, Irene said, "There are about 120 days left until you beat Ignat's record. Within that time, whatever it takes, I will pull you down from the champion spot. In the champion defense match held 4 months from now, I will win against you." Irene Pereira wins all of the matches and is now promoted to the king level and enters the Land of Glory. The Land of Opportunity no longer stops him. In the level before reaching the king level, the one who faced Irene is no other than his friend Judith. Judith was really determined to surpass Irene. At first, their match looks like they are on equal footing with one another. But in the end, Irene ends up victorious as he was able to defeat Judith in their last clash of swords. Before Irene can fight the champion, which is Ilya, he needs to defeat first the former champion of the Land of Proof. His opponent is Ricardo Pinto. From his father, the Swordmaster Harrison Pinto, he inherited Vulcanus' first numbering sword. It was expected that Ricardo Pinto would be a very skilled fighter as he was a former champion. But Irene was so determined to defeat Ilya. Irene emerges victorious at the end as he was able to break Vulcanus' sword during their fight. Now the remaining fight that Irene needs to finish is his battle with his friend Ilya, who succumbed to demonic energy. In that fight, Irene was able to obtain a new sword and progress his aura sword. He was able to defeat Ilya. After Ilya's defeat, she thinks that it is already over and her life is already meaningless, not knowing what to do next. Irene told him that he wanted them to make up again and offer his hand to Ilya. Ilya felt the warm feeling that Irene emits and they become close friends once again. But one mysterious guy in the audience, who was the one who was responsible for spreading the demonic energy, felt disappointed to see that Ilya become clearer from the demonic energy. He is starting to get annoyed at Irene, who is a human with anti-demonic energy. He is starting to question what kind of person he is. After that, the 6 of them traveled to the place of Kruver, in where they met the Drukali's former chief and spiritualist, one of the top 10 strongest in the continent, Karakim, who is also the father of Kruver. The person they want to meet at that time is the teacher of Kruver, who could tell the meaning of Irene's dream. But at that moment when they arrived at that place, Kruver's teacher had already passed away a few years ago, but he left a letter for Kruver with a riddle on it. And somewhat Kruver was able to resurrect his teacher Gruger for a short period of time. Gruger said that he will go back to where he belongs after he finishes what he came for. As a shaman, Gruger was able to look at Irene and what is the mysteries behind him. He said, "As Kruver has told me, I will be frank. I can interpret your dream. The man who you have been so curious about is your past self. It is you from a long time ago." After Kruver made all the preparations, they were brought to the mountain peak with the mark for the start of the ritual. They lied to the stone where their name was put in. Gruger said, "We will be meeting the man who has been disturbing Sir Irene Pereira's dream." The 6 of them lies down in the stone bed, including those 5 who are the closest friend of Irene. He wants to share them what is his dream about. Sir Gruger cast a spell and they were able to fall asleep and see behind the dreams of Irene. It started with 2 knights telling their lord that it is time to depart. Their lord also said that they needed to go. But as he walks by the village, the villagers are angry at him. They are murmuring. One citizen said, "He is leaving the territory when there is a demon? It is due to his child being possessed by a demon. I heard his child died. He might have turned into a Demonoid." One of the angry old men shouted. The reason why the demons mobbed this place a few months ago is all because of him. You coward! You are leaving the territory so you can survive by yourself? One of the old men was crying. He looks injured while carrying the metal fork said, "Did you really bring the demons here? Did you really sell us off to the demons? Please say something." The Lord Karen Winker looks at him in the eyes. He said, "It seems like it was for my selfishness for wanting to leave this place quietly. I don't know if you will believe what I say, but I will tell you everything. He appeared a week ago." Karen Winker's wife looks so worried looking at their child. She said, "Honey, our baby isn't breathing." Karen Winker starts to question why is this happening. Then a demon clown suddenly appeared asking the couple if they want to save their child. The demon clown said, "Karen Winker, the child's life is in your hands. I will spare either your wife or child. Now choose." Karen Winker shouted, "What are you talking about? Why do I need to listen to such a ridiculous demand?" His wife was crying, shivering in fear while holding their child. The demon clown said, "Do you think it was a mere coincidence that the demons came to this territory? I cursed your child and brought the demons here. Accept your fate, Karen Winker. You just need to choose." Karen Winker was asking what is he talking about. Then, his wife suddenly hands him the child, and he asks where she is going. However, his wife runs towards the window, attempting to jump. Karen Winker cries, begging his wife to stop and not go near that window. His wife was attempting to jump. Karen Winker was crying and put down the child on the bed. He told his wife to wait and said that he will be the one to sacrifice himself. His wife smiled for the last time and told him to take care of their child. Then, she jumped out of the window. Karen Winker shouted, begging his wife to no do that, but it was already too late. He was so devastated after that the only thing he could do was bow down to the floor while regretting it. He shouted while crying in agony. But his child starts to breathe and cry. The demon clown carries their child and he says, "Oh my, oh my, that was against the rules. Sacrificing her life was your wife's decision and not a decision made by yourself. So that deal is off. It is time to make another choice." Karen Winker cries as he suffers from the hardship because of this demon clown. The demon clown offers a new bet. He says, "Do not worry too much. This time it will be a little bit easier. Now choose your child's life or the life of everyone in the territory." The Lord Karen Winker ended his story and he said, "That day, I lost both my wife and son. That was the best decision I could make." After hearing that his lord chooses the people of their territory rather than saving his child, the old man cried more and was somewhat regretful for blaming his lord. Karen Winker said, "The demon clown said that I am cursed. If I stay here, I don't know what more horrific things may happen. I won't ask you to help. However, don't stop me." Karen Winker leaves the territory that he owns, but the demon clown keeps following him. The demon clown said, "How is there no one following after you? They sent off their lord who has gone through so much for them. They do not even know how to be grateful, those bad people. Don't you just want to kill them? They will only understand your efforts and sadness once they lose their own families." Then the demon clown pops up in front of Karen Winker and he says, "So with that being said, I am going to offer you a new deal. Sign a contract with me. How about it? Sign it, become a Demonoid, and slaughter all of them. You can toy with them as much as you want." But no matter how he bothers Karen Winker, this guy doesn't even put an ounce of interest in what he is saying. He said, "How cold. You are a lot of less fun than I thought. Did I choose the wrong person?" That is why the demon clown told him everything. He said, "If I knew this would happen, I should have gathered the demons and gone to the next territory." Karen Winker looks back at him and he asks, "What do you mean by gathering the demons?" The demon clown laughs and was happy to see that Karen Winker starts to look at him in the eye after hearing what he said. Karen Winker shouted, "Then the demons that mobbed the territory, and my child cursed was all your doing." The demon clown laughed and replied, "That is right. I did it. From the beginning, you weren't cursed." After hearing what the demon clown said, the world of Karen Winker starts to slow down, and everything seems to darken as he realizes what happened. His world turns around, as if everything has been plunged into darkness. He starts to ask if this demon clown was just fooling around with him from the start. He was in his lowest state of mind, asking the demon, "Why? Just why? Why did you do it? What did I do wrong? For what reason?" The demon smiled. He said, "Reason? A reason, huh? If you really want one, Then I was a little bored, and at that moment I saw you. It was like fate. Karen Winker falls to his knees as he tries to absorb everything the demon clown said. His life has become a game for this demonic figure. He is still asking what because he cannot believe that he lost everything because of that. The demon clown, on the other hand, smiled. He said, I am going to get on my next journey. It was fun thanks to you. If you want to see me, come to the peak of the mountains in the south. The demon laughs and tells him that he will see him later on and then vanish in the air. Karen Winker was kneeling and was crying from what he heard. He said, I won't forgive you. I am going to kill you. Wait for me there. Then he slowly stands up while his legs are still shaking. While fully determined to take revenge, he said, no matter how long it takes, I am going to find you. No matter what. Until such time that his hair starts to grow from his journey, but his face is still gloomy and expressionless. Then he bought a land far from his territory. The village head gladly welcomes him. The village head shakes his hand and says, welcome. We are not territorial, so stay comfortable. Ask questions if there is anything you don't know. Then Karen Winker goes to the land he bought. One of the villagers asks, village head, where did he come from? The village head replied, who knows? I don't think he is from around here though. Karen Winker walks towards the house and lot that he bought. In his mind, that is a relief. It doesn't seem like rumors have spread to this village. Good. I should develop my strength and find him. Karen Winker was training. The only thing he could do was continuously do his vertical slash. The villager who asked their village head to go takes a peek at Karen Winker, who was doing his training. In his mind, ridiculous. I came to see him because I heard he has only been swinging his sword for half a year. But I know that look in his eyes isn't something you can easily get. He must have a story, a devastating one at that. While slashing his sword, he remembers those people who claimed to have heard rumors about him being possessed by a demon. Those individuals had insisted that he leave their place immediately. Those swordsmen whom he asks help to teach him some sword techniques, but told him that they are sorry because they cannot teach him anything. That is why all he can do is slash his sword vertically again and again. And while he was continuously practicing and slashing his sword, a black thing suddenly appeared. It was the evil spirits of those villagers saying, to think you were cursed by a demon. You disgusting bastard. Are you trying to disgrace us too? Get lost right now. But Karen Winker just slashes them down saying, I am going to kill you all. But another spirit of dead villagers appeared saying, it is all your fault. Atone for your sins, you demonic child. But he just slices them down with his sword and said the same thing. Then the one that made him shiver was when he heard his child and wife's voice. That dead spirit imitating his wife said, it was you. You killed your child and me. Why did you let me die? Why? But he raised his sword to thrust those spirits imitating his wife and son. And the sun starts to rise again. In his mind, it is morning again. How much time has passed? No, that is meaningless now. Hurry, let's train. They are still alive. I cannot rest. Then suddenly, when he was aiming to slash again, a cute little girl appeared asking him if he was tired from practicing. Then that cute little girl gives him a flower. She says, here, I will give you this. Her father shouted at her. He said, Lola, what are you doing over there? Get away from there right now. Then Lola, this cute little child, runs toward her father and bids her goodbye to the swordmaster. Lola's father told her that she could not just enter into someone else's house. Lola told her father that she would not do it again. Then Lola asks her father what is wrong when she notices that he was shocked by what he saw. Her father tells her that the man is smiling while looking at the flower she gave. Looking at the flower he received from that little girl. Karen Winker felt a strange feeling. He starts to question his mind. What is this feeling? A somewhat familiar feeling. I know what it is. The unconditional devotion from my parents when I was young. The loyal support from the people who lived in my territory. My lovable wife and my son, who was the apple of my eye. These warm emotions that I felt in all of these moments. It has been a while since I have such a holistic focus on the sword. More time passed as he wielded his sword, practicing with full determination and focus to defeat the demon clown. Many seasons changed, and he also grew older, his beard starting to grow longer. When he starts to walk, continuing this path to eradicate the clown, the evil spirits representing his negative emotions start to rise up again, saying, the demon's child, What are you planning on doing again? You are running to save yourself again? You are an irresponsible coward." But at that time, Karen Winker didn't even waver from what they are saying, and he just stands in there. Then he said, "At first, I thought that the demon was the one that sent all of you. However, now I have realized that the one that sent you all, the one who was engulfed with negative feelings of hatred and anger, it was me." As he gains enlightenment, those spirits of illusion from his negative emotion vanish in the air. He was able to attain a sword that could slice down the demonic energy. He said, "Right now it is all right. I think I can move forward now. I can feel it. He is in front of my eyes." With that, Karen Winker rushes to where is the demon clown can be found. There he saw the demon clown playing with another victim from his evil schemes. The demon was shivering from the shock when he saw the man. He said, "You, Karen Winker, how are you?" Karen Winker was aiming to slash him down. He said, "You are still doing your wicked deeds. Things will no longer go the way you want." The demon clown was trying to counter his attack by trying to create a magic made up of darkness. But Karen Winker was already able to release a slash that slices him down. The demon clown was panicking, trying to run away from Karen Winker. In his mind, he sliced darkness. I cannot block his attacks. I need to run away. Karen Winker rushed towards the demon who was crawling away. He said, "You think I will let you run away?" But suddenly Karen Winker felt that he could not move his feet anymore. No matter what he do, he cannot move, and he only falls on his knees. He was kneeling, holding onto his sword, panting. He is asking, "Did I reach my physical limit? Why? Why now? Even though I made a sword that could cut darkness, I cannot punish that demon. How sad." As he starts to close his eyes while his life withers away, he could only think about his one wish. In his mind, it might be for nothing, but I will beg with my heart, no matter what, if my current mentality, my will, if it could be sent with someone else, if that could happen. With that, it ends the dream of Irene. Sir Gruger said, hundreds of years ago, in order to fight the demon clown who appeared, Karen Winker, the man who wielded the sword alone. The person who inherited that is you, Irene Pereira. After that, Irene told Ilya that he wanted to go to and find Ignet. He told him that at first, he was jealous of Ignet, thinking that Ignet possessed something that he didn't have. It was an embarrassing weak side of him, but now he felt that he can stand proudly with her. Irene asks, "I am not sure what changes it will bring you, but will you come with me?" After hearing that in Ilya's mind, "I know now. I was avoiding it. I don't have the confidence to see Ignet. I was running away from her because I was scared. I would crumble from fear. If I don't face it, then nothing will happen." With that, Ilya told Irene that he will go with him. Brett and Judith, on the other hand, bid their farewell to Irene, Ilya, Ruru, and the rest of the Drukali tribe, since they are going to go back to the Chrono Swordsmanship Academy. But Judith and Brett were distancing themselves from one another because of the awkwardness after Brett confesses his feelings to Judith. Ruru, Ilya, and Irene stay in Drukali tribe for a month to train more before departing for their new journey. The sparring partner of Irene is Karakim, who is one of the strongest top 10. Then after a few months, Irene also bid his goodbye. Kruver said, "It is a shame that it is already time for you to leave." Irene said, "Kruver, you have to be well. Honestly, I am a little worried. I have decided what path I am going to take, but I am unsure if I will be able to do it well." Kruver said, "No, you will. Irene, you have a special power. You have the power to make your surroundings bright. The power to change those with you. It's you. You will be able to do it. If it is you, you will be able to change the world. The reason why I was able to stop my wandering of 17 years was thanks to you, my friend, my apprentice, my teacher. Irene, you are already my hero." Irene replied, "Thanks, Kruver. I will try hard. To be able to be called everyone's hero, I will do my best." Ilya smiled and said, "Then shall we go?" Then they left the Drukali tribe confidently and happy for their next trip. Now let's move on to the main story. Let's start the story with this random guy. He introduced himself and he said, "Hey, great to see you. The name is Johnson. I work as a coachman. I can act as a guide as long as you pay me. But this is not my real job. In reality, I am the leader of the group of bandits. Disguising as a coachman, I lure people away and loot them. Our method is very simple. First, I wait for a rich-looking person to hire me. Next, I use a believable excuse to take them near our hideout. and my subordinates, who are hiding there, start looting. What do you think? Perfect, right? Our methods never failed even once. Then a random guy appeared asking Johnson if he is there to hire for a coachman. But that guy is Irene, and with him are Ilya and Ruru. Johnson happily said, "Oh my, it was nice to meet you. I am Johnson." It was an honor to be able to serve such precious guests. But on the inside, Johnson was hiding his evil laugh. In his mind, another one who are like a lamb to slaughter. I will make sure to rob you of every penny you've got. We all know that this guy is courting death at this moment. Johnson was hired as the coachman for their carriage. Irene and Ilya were engaged in a happy conversation inside, but there was something on Johnson's mind. He laughs while shaking in excitement. In his mind, this is awesome. Such put-together outfits. An atmosphere full of elegance. There is no doubt they are the children of nobility. I will be able to mess around and feast for days from just this looting alone. Then they stop in the wilderness to rest. Johnson told Irene, "We will have to stay out here for the day." Irene replied, "In that case, we will need to light a fire first." Then Ilya pulls up her sword and told them that she would get the firewood. Hearing that, Johnson starts to question, "What? Geez, is she trying to chop a wood with her sword?" Johnson offers Ilya an axe. He said, "That sword might not work. Please move aside. I will chop it for you." But without hesitation, Ilya cut the tree in half with just one slash. Then Ilya releases multiple slashes that cut down the wood into thin pieces for them to create a fire. Johnson was left speechless while sweating from the spectacle he saw. Ilya asks, "About this thickness, it should work, right?" Johnson could only agree at Ilya. Then this cute little fella Ruru comes in and tells them that it is now her turn. And then she uses her power to lit up the wood for their campfire. She proudly said, "Irene, did you see that? I can use spirits now as well." Irene replied, "Ruru, that was mystic arts just now." But on the other hand, Johnson was confused as to why the cat is speaking. He was left standing frozen from shocked. He starts to question, "These brats, just who the hell are they?" The next day, Irene told Mr. Johnson to step back since they were going to have a sparring match. Irene told Ilya to be prepared since he is now going to attack. Johnson starts to question, "Sparring? Where the hell did he get the great sword from?" As he looked at the shining sword of Ilya and Irene, he was sweating in fear. In his mind, those are aura swords. Both of them are swordmasters. Then Ilya and Irene start their sparring session and, in every exchange, create a massive explosion. The ending creates a large crater on the ground. Ruru approaches them and angrily says, "Irene, you are too noisy. You just woke me up." Irene told Ruru that he was sorry about that. Johnson falls to the ground, kneeling while shivering in shock. In his mind, "I give up. Fighting them will end up killing us." And while continuing their path, they stumble into one of the inns. Irene said, "We can stay at this inn for the night." But Johnson starts sweating looking at the inn. In his mind, "Huh? This inn? But this inn is our hideout." Because of the strange action of Johnson, Irene asks him, "What is wrong? Is there a problem?" Johnson replied, "No. I will check if there is a vacant room, so please just wait for a while." He told Irene to wait. Johnson plans to go in first because he plans to stop his bandit underlings from coming out at all costs or they will be doomed. But Johnson was shocked when he heard the voice of the bandits blocking Irene and his group. The bandit said, "Oi, who are you guys? You are in our territory. From the looks of it, you seem like rich nobles. How about sharing some of the wealth with us commoners?" Then Johnson suddenly appeared shouting at his underlings. He said, "Oi, you son of a horse! All of you, get away from my customers." Johnson was still shivering while walking to one of the bandits. The bandit asks, "Hyungnim, what are you doing?" Johnson shouted at him, "Get the hell out of here right now." The bandit is whispering, "What are you trying to do, Hyungnim? Move!" Because this guy was hard-headed, Johnson punched him in the face. Johnson grabs his collar and shouted, "Get the freaking out of here if you don't want to die by my hands." But he softly whispers, "Quickly get out of here. Run away unless you all want to die." Those bandits left and followed Johnson, but to follow up his acting, he still shouted, "If I see you again, I will kill you." But the truth is he felt sorry for his underlings for beating them. Ruru's eyes were sparkling, saying that Johnson is cool. Ilya said, "You are amazing. You defeated those thugs." Johnson laughed and said that it was not a big deal. Ruru told him that he deserves a bonus, but Johnson was questioning what kind of bonus. Then Ruru gave him 2 golden mice as a bonus that makes Johnson shocked to see gold in his hand. Ruru said, "Keep up the good work. There is more for you if you do a good job." After that, they go to a restaurant to eat, and Johnson was like the Flash who was serving them well. He said, "I contacted the restaurant at the inn. I ordered only the finest food from the chef. I even prepared a special tuna steak for Ruru Nim." Ruru was quite shocked by the good food she got. Irene asks him, "Mr. Johnson, aren't you pushing yourself too hard?" Johnson replied, "Not at all. I, Johnson, shall continue to serve my clients to the best of my ability." A few days later, Johnson was sitting on the ground panting from all the works. He said that he cannot do this kind of work for too long, but still he smiled and laughed. He said, "Still, a bit more, and I can quit looting others for the rest of my life." Then he carries the sack of gold on his back. He said, "Awesome. How about we earn a bit more money?" But while walking, he saw that Ilya and Irene were sitting near each other. Irene asks, "How are you these days?" Ilya replied, "It is a bit better, but I still worry." Then Irene grabbed her hand, which made her blush. He said, "It is okay. Don't worry too much about it. Ignet might have felt like a great deal when we were young, but that won't be the case now. I bet it won't even be a big deal once you meet." Ilya asks, "Really? Do you think so?" Johnson, who was hiding looking at them, smiles. He said, "As I thought. So they are in that kind of relationship. The vibe is great. How about I watch a little more? They will definitely kiss, right?" But Irene suddenly stood up, which made even Ilya alarmed. He said, "Well, let's get up now. We need to leave early tomorrow." Hearing that made Johnson angry and disappointed. He said, "Huh? What? Holding hands? That's it. They got the great vibe going, and it just ends just like that." Then Johnson suddenly steps into something that made him fall. Irene saw Johnson and asks him if he is okay. Johnson told him that he was okay, but Ilya left them and said that she will go for a short walk. Looking at the situation, Johnson thinks that this is a great trouble. Johnson whispers at Irene. He asks, "By the way, are you not going to go after her?" Irene replied, "No, she has a lot on her mind these days, so she probably needs some time alone." Johnson was shocked to see that Irene, this packer, is so dull as hell. Then the day continues and Johnson serves them like he is the Flash. He said, "Please have a seat there while I make the preparations." But while walking inside the tavern, Irene heard one of the men talking. He said, "This dungeon is going to be amazing. I bet it will be the greatest one in 100 years. On top of that, the Holy Kingdom is joining the dungeon expedition." Hearing that also caught the interest of Ilya. One of the men asks, "The Holy Kingdom? But why?" The old man with black beard replied, "This is no ordinary dungeon. Not just its size, but apparently it is an ancient dungeon that was created at least during the times of the demonic Dragon King. Several treasures of great value are said to be buried there. That is why the Calvin Kingdom tried to conquer it quickly when they first discovered it. But they faced oppositions from their neighboring kingdoms. So, to avoid conflict between the 3 kingdoms, the Holy Kingdom deployed their Knight Order to mediate the issue." Then Irene asks, he said, "Excuse me, can I ask you something? Which Knight Order did the Holy Kingdom deploy?" The old man asks Irene if he is a swordsman, which he replied yes. The old man said, "In that case, you must have heard of them. The Black Knights led by Ignet Crescentia." These caught both the interest of Irene and Ilya. Irene asks, "Do you know if mercenaries are allowed to participate in that dungeon expedition?"